Okay, sweet automation. Welcome back again. Today, we're going to be building our very first workflow, which is called the GetPlayerRequest. The first thing I want to do is close out of the main workflow. So I close out of this and I want to hit new sequence, select sequence, and give this sequence a name, GetPlayerRequest. Hit create, and this should automatically create and open up a workflow called the GetPlayerRequest. Just for a proof of concept, if you head back to your project, you should see a GetPlayerRequest alongside a main.xml workflow. It's okay to have both workflows open up together, but I recommend that you only have what you're working on so you don't have to get yourself confused. So close out of the main and make sure you are in the GetPlayerRequest. Now, in my GetPlayerRequest, I will want to have a sequence. Best practice, you always want to have a sequence and do everything inside of a sequence. So I would want to have a sequence and I would want to show a form. So I'm going to look for forms in my activities, forms, and I would see show form. Right now, I do not have any form to show. So if I click the drop down here, you can see it gives me the option to create a form because I do not have a form to show. So I'm going to create a form. There are two ways of creating a form. You can either come here and click create a form, or you can just click new here and select form. So I'm going to create a form and I'm going to call that form start form, and I would hit create. Now the next thing I want to do is build my form. Okay, so my form is going to consist of several fields. The first field is going to be the name of the player. What we need to take note of is the field key name, as this is going to be the value that will pass data in or out of that field. And the field type is going to be a text field and it's going to be required. So let's go to our start form and add this field. Now in our start form, we agreed that the field is going to be a text field. So in your components section, expand on basic and you want to drag in a text field, drop it on the form, and you want to call this text field, you want to call the label name of player, and that you can find that underneath display. Give it name of player, and you want to go over to validation. You want to make it required, and you want to go over to field key, and you want to edit the name of the field key. So I'm going to call it name of player field according to the table I created. Now the reason why UiPath automatically generates this property name for you underneath the field key section, but the reason why I want you guys to rename it is so that you can always remember what the name is, because you would need this you would need this stuff to pass in data to or out of this field. Now you can see what the field looks like from the preview section, and if it's okay, it looks pretty much okay, you can hit the save. Now the next field we're going to create is the number of questions field. Now what you need to take note of is that this field is going to be a number field, unlike the previous field that was a text field. So let's go back to our studio and add this field to our form. So back to our studio, I'm going to add a number type field, and I'm going to call this number of questions. And for validation, I would make it required. The field key name, I'm going to rename the auto generated field key property name to number of questions. Field, I'm going to use camel casing. The reason why I put each letter, the letter of each word in capital letter is called camel casing. That's like conventional development style. The field looks good and I'm okay. I would save. Okay. And the next field is going to be a drop down list. That's the type. The name of the field is going to be type of question. So let's go back to a form to add this field. So back to a start form, I'm going to add a drop down list. And I'm going to make the label name type of question. And for the validation, I'm going to make it required for field key property name. I'm going to call it type of question field. It looks okay and I save. Now we're going to add another field called difficulty. It's going to be a drop down list. So let's go back to a form to add this. So back to a form, I'm going to add another drop down list. Going to call the label difficulty, validation required, and field key. I want to change the property name to difficulty field. Looks good. Tested it. You can see it in the preview, and I save. Always don't forget to hit Ctrl S to save. As you can see, I have an asterisk here. It means I haven't saved, so Ctrl S to save my work. So the next field you would love to add is going to be your buttons. So we're going to be adding the play and end button, and they're going to be of the button components type. So let's go back to a form and add this. So back to a form, we already have a button called submit. So we're going to edit the button. So click on the J icon with edit. And you want to change the label to play on the display section. And you want to make the action to be custom. Very important. And you want to make it a block button so it spans across the form. And you want to disable the form when this button is invalid. So make sure you want to disable this button whenever the form is invalid. So you don't want the player to play the game when other parameters or other fields are not populated or completed. So keep this checked, disable on invalid. And you want to go over to field key name and correct the field key name to play button, and it looks good. You want to save. Now for the end button, you're just going to copy this button. So click on the copy icon here, copy, and you want to paste below. Now you want to edit the duplicate, and you want to change this to end for the display label. You want to still leave it as a block button, but then you don't want to disable the button when the form is invalid. So you want to uncheck this, and you want to go back to field key name, the property name in the field key section. You want to change this to end button. Now you want to also change color because it doesn't make sense to have the same color with the play button. So I'm going to go back to display, and you should see that underneath theme, all you need to do is switch this to danger. Automatically it's going to have a red color, and you save. The next thing I want to do is I want to make these buttons to be stacked side by side so it looks nice. So I'm going to add a column component. So underneath layouts, you'll see columns. So drag in a column component, and automatically this is going to give you 50% on the left and 50% on the right. So you just want to hit save. Now you want to move the play button. So you can see a move sign, a cross-like sign here. So you want to click on that cross-like sign, drag your play button to the left, and you want to do the same for your end button. Click on the cross-like sign that says move, and you want to drag your end button to the right, and you want to hit Ctrl S on your form So it saves and you are good. One very last thing before we go, it would be nice to add a very beautiful label to our form. So it's always nice to do that. So you're gonna look for a label component, and you can find that underneath the basic components. You see label or header, to drag it to the top of your form, drop it on top of your form, and you want to make the label size. You want to make the label size a header high, and you want to write into the content quiz but, and you can see the preview. It looks all nice, and you want to save. Now it looks all good. You hit Ctrl S to save, and everything looks nice.